Hey, what's up? I am Dan. You are watching the Pistons of Fury YouTube channel. On this channel, we are going to be working on some of my project cars. So the first thing we're going to do is, I'm actually right in the middle of working on my Mustang. So we're going to start here. This is a 1966 Mustang coupe, vintage burgundy. It was actually bought by my grandmother, brand new in 1966. She sold it to my mom. My mom gave it to my dad when they got married. It sat in our garage for a long time. And I inherited it in high school. It was a 6-cylinder, 3-speed car at the time, very pedestrian, very secretary-ish, daily driver, that kind of thing. At that point, my friend and I decided we were going to do what we wanted to do with it. So we yanked out the 6-cylinder, 3-speed, all the stuff associated with that. We dropped in a 302 crate motor, 4-speed transmission, redid the whole suspension, did like a road race kind of kit at the time. It was very harsh. Stupid decision, but we were teenagers, so it didn't really matter to us at the time. Since then, I've actually rebuilt the entire suspension, so it's got Bilstein shocks now, it's got roller bearings, that kind of stuff, redid all the brakes, so that's all good. We'll look at that, and there's still a little bit more work to be done there. Right now, I am actually in the middle of an interior rebuild, so I have the entire interior gutted. I'm doing sound insulation, sound dampening. I'm going to be doing a respray of the interior, which is new to me in terms of like detail, spray with real compressor, real paint, all that kind of stuff, so that's going to be fun. So I think the first thing I'm going to do is just grab the camera and I'm going to show you guys around the car and a little bit of the stuff we're going to be working on. Right, so this is the interior. You can see I have some sound dampening mat already laid down on the floor. So both the driver's side and the passenger side floor panels, they both had some rust. It was kind of up near where, I guess if you can see down there where the pedals are, it's kind of right near that, where the floor kind of meets the bottom of the firewall. So that's pretty common. These Mustangs, they all have out here, if you see this vent right here, that's the cowl vent. These things are notorious for collecting water in there, debris. This car came from New Jersey, so it had a lot of pine needles, leaves, and everything that kind of sat in there and held up the water. Water eventually rusts out the metal because they didn't put any kind of corrosion protection. So that happened. A lot of water leaked over 50 years. The car's pretty old. So I was actually kind of fortunate it wasn't as bad as it could have been. I've seen a lot worse in these cars. So right now I've kind of got the sound insulation already done up in the front. I have the dampening on the floor. You really don't need as much dampening as I have right here. The dampening is this silver stuff, and that's kind of like a tar mat with like a aluminum sheeting on top of it, so it kind of protects from heat. It protects from the panels vibrating. So that's what I've got laid down there. You don't really need as much. You really just need a small piece on a big metal panel because that's really where the road noise comes from. But I chose to do that. So for me, it's kind of heat protection, and it also protects against water getting down to the metal again because I spent a lot of time cutting out that rust and fixing it. So that's that. I'm kind of working my way back to under the rear seat. So that's what I'm going to be working on today. I actually did find a little bit of rust back there, so I'm actually waiting on some replacement parts for my welder before I get into that. So I'm just going to try to do as much of this sound deadening as I can today and see how far we get. So here we go. So what I'm doing here is basically I've got this little ridge here where the two panels join, and I also have this bracket right here which helps the bottom of the seat kind of snap into place. So I've got to just kind of bend this. This is really flexible, and it's got this plastic coating on the back. All this stuff is from I think it's from RAA Mat, something like that. I'm going to post the link in the description of the video so you guys can find them. It's I've tried a lot of this sound deadening. I've got an old station wagon. I put stuff called brown bread from another supplier in there. That was cool. Little expensive, not as expensive as Dynamat, but very comparable in terms of sound deadening and things like that. So really good stuff. This raw mat stuff was, I think, even cheaper than the stuff I used on my other car. And they've got the comparison charts up there, so they do all the work for you in terms of like knowing the dB loss and stuff associated with this stuff. So this is really good stuff. A little bit hard to work with once you peel this plastic layer on the back off. It gets really sticky really fast. you saw I cleaned up a little bit here. I just wanted to get these surfaces clean so the stuff doesn't peel off at some point in the future. So I'm gonna continue working here and try to cut out some little recesses to get over these little body parts that I have here. Cut myself. Something to know is you should probably wear protective gloves when doing this. I usually do that, but I found it also kind of sticks to the backing when you peel off the plastic, so I didn't do that this time. This aluminum is thick enough to slice your finger. Good to know. Alright, so what I'm going to do here is I'm basically going to take this entire sheet and do my best to try to cover all of these little gaps. This is like the 8-pillar little triangle window. The seal, these don't get used that much, so a lot of the internal mechanisms and everything, you know, it's probably been rolled up, you know, maybe 1,000 times in its life, which for a window is you know, this type is not a lot. It's still pretty solid. I don't think I need to replace any of the stuff in here, so I'm just going to go ahead and cover this over, and then I'm going to put yeah, the same sound deadening that I'm doing with everything else over that too. Hopefully eliminate some of that road noise. I'm definitely going to cover the wheel well here. This is, I mean, you know, as you guys know, with any car you always hear rocks and gravel and everything get kicked up in the wheel wells, so that's an important part that I want to deaden, because I want this car to be, I want it to be a daily driver. I want it to be quiet. I don't need a race car, you know, I can do that in another car. This car I want to be pleasurable to drive. I want to go on the PCH and take a nice drive and relax and not hear all the rattles and squeaks and everything. So I'm doing my best to get rid of that stuff. So we're gonna keep going here. Alright, so for this one, I've got to kind of contour this on the wheel well. So I think what I'm going to do is I've got this masking paper that I bought to kind of mask off everything for paint. I'm going to cut out a piece and try to make a template so that I don't have to, you know, because this stuff is hard. Like I said, once you peel this plastic backing off, it gets really sticky really fast and it gets really hard to work with. It sticks especially well to itself, like duct tape. So that really sucks when that happens. So I'm going to cut a piece of this and try to make a template that I can trace out onto this so that I cut this once and I can just put it on and not have to get sticky stuff everywhere. This is awesome. Here, I'm gonna try to grab this camera so you guys can see this. I think I mentioned that this was a New Jersey car, so there we go. You can't really see it. Let me grab the light. Alright, so that I just discovered was a nice fiberglass repair, which I guess back in the 1980s, before every panel existed for this car, that was the way to do it. So that is awesome. Okay, so I don't know if you, I guess you guys didn't see, but over here I had to do a similar patch. This inner quarter panel or inner wheelhouse had the same kind of issue. So that's actually a piece of a patch panel. I didn't think it was necessary to replace the entire inner wheelhouse. That's something that you can do. There's lots of videos out there. There's lots of tutorials about how to do that. That seemed pretty excessive just because the small corner of it was rusted. So I just decided to cut a piece off the patch panel I got and weld it in there. I mean, nobody's ever going to see this. It's either covered by undercoating on the outside, or it's covered by sound insulation, carpet, seats on the inside. So you can see some of the other rust that I found, a little patch panel right there that I'm going to have to do. And then there's something similar over here. So now I have to cut this sound insulation a little short and see what I'm going to do about that. But like I said, I'm waiting on some supplies from my welder, so there's nothing I can do today. So I'm going to just cut this insulation up high and plan on coming back and patching that. Now I think what I can do is I have the rest of that wheel arch patch that I used for the other one, so I think I can just cut a chunk off and keep the contour the same and just weld that in there when my welder is fixed. So I'm going to keep going here. We're going to cut that off, and hopefully we do not find any more holes like that, because this, I thought I was done with welding. I guess you're never done on these old cars. Alright, we're gonna... Alright, so I'm making some progress. I was thinking one of the other cool things about doing this underlayment, like I said, even if you don't absolutely need it on every panel, is that it gives you a nice clean surface, especially on an older car. On a newer car it may be less of an issue. Especially on an older car that has lots of, you can sit here and scrub forever and not get all the grease and dirt and everything. So, unless you're doing some kind of concourse job, which obviously this is not. So one of the other cool things is it gives you a nice clean surface, so that when we come through and do our foam insulation, it's got something nice and new to stick to. So that's what this helps provide. Just kind of working my way through here, doing some little panels. I'm going to come up over here, over the transmission hump or the driveline hump, and do that, and then work my way over here. I've got the same rust issues, so this area down here I'm kind of leaving bare for the moment until I can get in there and weld that, get my panels in, and then I'll come back and do this on top of that. One area I think you can, no, I guess here. Angle this here. So one area right here I'm actually leaving bare for now. I'm going to come back and do insulation on top of that, but I'm going to be mounting a low-car handbrake that'll kind of match match everything else. It's got a chrome handle, and I'll create a little boot for it, but I am going to be cutting through here and doing that because the original parking brake in these cars totally sucks. The linkage sucks, the brake itself sucks. It's not functional. It is literally just for parking. So putting a handbrake here will actually put it in a place where I can use it and do fun things with it. So that's the goal. All right, I'm gonna keep going. I'll probably move to this other side here. I'm gonna move the camera, and there we go. Alright, just realized I sliced open another finger, so gotta take care of that. It's bleeding all over the place. And I'm gonna follow my own advice now and put on some gloves, because I'd much rather slice through some rubberized latex than my finger again. Alright, so real quick, pro tip on the roller you probably see me using on this. This was actually something that came free when I ordered my sound deadening for the other car that I did. I had the option to purchase the deluxe roller, which in hindsight I would definitely recommend anybody do. This thing, the way it's basically set up is it's a cheap tool. You know, it probably didn't cost more than like 25 cents to make. It's got this kind of U-shaped metal thing, and it had in the middle of this wood block, or this wood roller piece, it had just a bar, and the more pressure you put on it, it spreads out this U-shape and the bar pops out. So for a long time I was very frustrated using it. It was a pain in the ass. So what I did is I actually drilled that out, and I found just a bolt with the Allen head key and a nut at the other end, a locking nut, and I replaced that roller, or replaced that pin in there, and this has been much better since then. I still would maybe recommend getting something higher quality so you can just do it right the first time. One other cool thing I found is that the end of it, I don't know if this was intentional or not, but it's rounded in a way that lets you press the sound deadening into where you have intersections between panels or tighter areas. You probably see me do that here around some of these beveled areas in the floor pans and things like that. So that's also very helpful. All right, keep going. So, I think that I'm now at the point where I've got enough of the floor covered with this stuff that I can start coming in with the sound deadening, soundproofing. So what I have is I've got this giant mat of, you probably saw a little bit of it. Move this and show you guys that. So this, the gray mat up here that's on the floor is like I said before, it's kind of this mat that has a sticky back, but it's a foam top. It's like a really dense foam that actually does the soundproofing. The shiny stuff is the sound deadening. It dampens. Oh wait, did I say deadening? Dampener. It actually dampens the vibrations of the car, so that's why you stick it directly to the metal. The sound deadening helps keep out all the noise. So this stuff's really thin, but apparently it's supposed to work really well. In some areas like this transmission tunnel, I am going to probably double it up. Like I said, it's thin. It's a lot thinner than the factory underlayment, which is that fibery, looks like a bunch of recycled fabric stuff. It probably is recycled fabric. So that's what that is. So I am going to clean some of this up, and then I will have some of that deadening material in here, and we'll do that for a little while. All right. All right, so this is the sound deadening mat. It comes in a giant sheet. I forget how wide it is, but I think it's 5 feet, 4 or 5 feet wide. And I got a big roll of, man, I don't know, like 25, 30 feet, or maybe it was like 12 yards, 36 feet. Yeah, that sounds right. Because I wanted to do 2 cars. I've got a Jeep Cherokee, which, if you've ever ridden in any kind of Jeep from the 90s and or before that, you know that they're very, very noisy. So I wanted to make that a little more livable. I've done about half of that, and I've done part of this car. This car comparatively has very small interior, but it's a lot older, so it doesn't have the benefit of modern technology, modern metals and sound deadening and things like that. So I've already put this on the roof of the car, and I'm actually going with a one-piece headliner, so I may actually put another layer or two on the roof, because the roofs in these things, if you've ever ridden in an old car, you know that when it rains and or you're on the highway in one of these, it's really hard to hear anything. So I'm going to try to soundproof that as best I can, but not doing the roof today. I'll do that. I'll finish that part up when I get the one-piece headliner. I'm also going to do that install on this series, which is going to be really cool. I'm super excited about that. I actually have a traditional headliner kit for this car. It was $150, but from everything I've read and everything I've researched about that, they are a total pain in the ass to install, even when you have the car stripped like this. So, you know, they involve taking out glass if you're doing it the right way and things like that. I'm probably even going to replace the glass in this car, but I just don't want to deal with that, because I don't want to deal with it getting hit by kids or people's heads or whatever and falling down again, because then I have to redo it again. One-piece headliner install, it should be permanent. So I'm looking forward to doing that, and everything I'm doing now is I'm working towards that. So I'm going to go ahead and try to cut this. I'm going to probably measure a little bit and try to cut this to shape, and then we'll go and install it. Alright, so after looking at it real quick, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to cut small sections. I'm just going to measure floor pan dimensions, and I'm going to do it in pieces, because trying to do a one piece with this stuff is going to be a real pain. So you know, like the silver stuff, once the mail just arrived, weird. Once you cut this stuff and you take the backing off, it sticks to everything, so it's a real pain. So you got to make sure that when you're trying to do this, if you're trying to do a big sheet like a headliner or you know, something don't do it by yourself. If you're trying to do one sheet, get some help. Otherwise, just cut smaller pieces and do it in patches. It's going to be under carpet, under everything, so nobody's ever going to see it. So yeah, that's what I'm going to do. Alright, so I've got two front floor pans cut. I've got a little bit of extra, which I think is actually going to be perfect for the transmission tunnel. So yeah, I think we're going to move back inside the car. Alright, so that's unfortunately all I have time to do today. We made some good progress in there. That's definitely more progress than I made, I think, the last time that I was in there doing the front panel. So working our way towards the back. So I'll be back tomorrow, hopefully to finish doing, I think we're done with the deadening for a little while. I've got to go into the trunk and do the back of the wheel houses, but that's a separate day. What I really want to do is get the interior done, so I think what I'm going to do is work my way up the A-pillars. I've got some ideas for that, something I want to try out. And once we have that done, I don't know what we're going to do next. Some of it really depends on me getting my welding materials. So I need, you know, my welder. I've never replaced the lining in my gun. That's a big problem. And then my spool actually got rusty because I let it go for a long time. So hopefully that stuff gets here, and then hopefully I can get back to work, replace that rust. I need to install the passenger side seat belt. You probably saw I had a 3-point belt installed for the driver's side. I need to do that for the passenger side. And then once we are done all of that, I need to basically remask everything, and then we're going to get into painting. I've got some really nice satin black, some really good PPG stuff from outside the state of California. So it's the real paint, not the fake stuff they sell here. So looking forward to doing that. And yeah, but tomorrow we'll be back. We're going to finish up sound deadening, and then we get to move on.